We have no idea when the next Fire Emblem game is coming out. We don't know if it's going to be 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, or even more. At the time of making this video, we don't have any teasers from Nintendo, no trailers, just a few rumors about a supposed Fire Emblem 4 Genealogy of the Holy War remake. And the reason why people think this is coming is because the same person who leaked Fire Emblem Engage told us that they were working on an FE4 remake. But that doesn't necessarily mean that this remake will happen. They could have cancelled it, the person could have been misinformed. Just because you get one leak right doesn't mean that you're automatically right about everything else, and there's just a ton of factors that could come into play. I personally do hope that the FE4 remake is correct, but I'm also going to be happy if they just unveil another new original game, or maybe a sequel of a previous game like Three Houses. Either way, in this video, I'm not here to speculate on what the next Fire Emblem game might be. Today, I want to talk about what I personally want from the next game, and also things that I think would generally just be good for the series. Now, I am an old 30-year-old boomer at this point, and I realize that I am no longer the main target demographic for Fire Emblem. I'm personally a little bit stuck in the past. I love the older games. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy modern Fire Emblem as well, and I've gained a new appreciation for some of the newer titles over the years, but my heart truly lies with the GBA era. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I want a return to the GBA era, or that I think it would be good for the franchise to return to the GBA era, but I've written down a couple of things that I personally would really like to see for the next Fire Emblem game, so I'm just gonna list them off. So the first thing I want to see in the next Fire Emblem game is world building. My goodness, world building is important for the enjoyment of a game. I know that there's a lot of people in my comment section who just turn off everything dialogue related, and I know that I myself in the past have said that you cannot skip a bad gameplay, but you can skip a bad story, so gameplay is always going to be more important than a story. But after the release of Engage, I realized just how much I miss proper world building in my Fire Emblem. Say what you want about Three Houses, there's a lot to criticize about its story, but they really tried to build a compelling world with a history and a culture and a religion and things that actually happened in the past. They even had a freaking library at Garreg Mach where you could go and read up on Fodlan's history, and I made an entire video on my channel where I literally just sat and read books, and I thought this was an absolutely amazing thing to do. Not everyone is going to be interested in the lore of your universe, but it's very cool to add an alternative to those who are. I want to do a little bit of an experiment with you guys here. I want you to imagine the world of Elios with its continents, and I want you to write down 5 historical facts about each nation. 5 things that actually happened, things that took place in their history. I would be surprised if most of you were able to write down more than 1 or 2 points, because the truth is, Engage just didn't do world building. And that just reminded me that it's so important to have a compelling world if you want people to care about your narrative. However, Engage wasn't the first culprit to do this. I'd say that the first time the world building really suffered in Fire Emblem was in Fates. They didn't even bother to name their continent. I mean, we jokingly call it Fateslandia, and it looks like a Google map. It's terrible. And I really do believe that Fate's story suffered as a result, because it's very hard to feel connected to a world that doesn't have any substance. So with the release of the next Fire Emblem game, I really hope that the developers put a considerable amount into building a compelling world. If the next game is a remake of Genealogy of the Holy War, then this will kinda be done for them, because Kaga already created a magnificent world for this game, so that will be pretty easy. All they need to do is just reiterate the story, show us some beautiful cinematics, make a compelling world map, etc. But if they actually want to develop a new original mainline game, I really hope that they don't cut the budget on the writing staff and that they actually take time to make a world that feels vibrant and alive. I want a rich history as to how the world came to be. I want heroes of the past. I want villains of the past. I want an established religion. I want several countries that make geographical sense. I want there to be politics and struggles between the countries. I want to know how the people in each of the countries make their living. I want to feel connected to this world that the narrative takes place in, and I want to care about it. So the next thing that I want is good-looking armor. Not realistic armor, all you Shadiversity fans coming into my comment section. I don't care. I don't care if it's practical. I mean, I like it to be a little bit practical, but that's not my main goal. I want good-looking armor. I want to show you some of my favorite armor designs from previous Fire Emblem games. Lots of Tellius characters in here because I honestly think the Tellius games did one of the best jobs in designing its characters, especially its females. Yeah, I know this armor may be a little bit fan-servicey sometimes. Nephanie's thighs are showing quite a bit, but I don't care. This is gorgeous. Look at these gorgeous characters. I want more armor designs like that. Even in the older Fire Emblem games where the art style was a lot more simplistic, I still think that the armor always looked good. I particularly enjoy the shoulder plates and the breastplates. Even though many characters have their thighs exposed, that's just Japan for you. But this was an aspect of Fire Emblem that never disappointed. And then we got characters like this, and this, and this. Sure, some of this armor may be practical, but it looks boring as hell. Give me back my beautiful armored ladies, please. The next thing I would like to see returned in the next game is the classic weapon triangle. The weapon triangle has been a staple of the series. Ever since Fire Emblem 4, it's pretty much never changed. The numbers and the values have been tweaked a little bit from game to game, but it's always worked the same way. Swords beat axes, axes beat lances, lances beat swords. Yes, I know that in Fates they complicated it quite a bit, and I don't want to hear anything about freaking Ninja, Oboro, and Bartra and stuff like. Get the hell out of my comment section. Anyway. This has been a very enjoyable trope of the Fire Emblem series, but for some reason, they started to tinker with it in the latest installments of Fire Emblem. Echoes didn't have a weapon triangle, and that's understandable because it is a remake of Gaiden, where the weapon triangle wasn't invented yet, and it also doesn't have any playable axe users, so it wouldn't really make a lot of sense for it to be there. But in Tree Houses, they kinda just ditched it, but they included it in the form of some breaker skills that you could learn, but it didn't really feel like the classic weapon triangle to me because you had to go out of your way to unlock it, and most characters would just never get it. And then in Engage, they added the break mechanic, which allowed you to disarm your opponents whenever you had a weapon triangle advantage, and they could also disarm you. And I know that this is a mechanic that a lot of people really like, and it adds a lot of strategy to the game. I just wish that we got that in addition to the classic weapon triangle, where it would also impact the hit rates, avoid rates, and damage of our units. I don't know about you guys, but one of the things I really enjoy about Fire Emblem is baiting enemies in with my units. If there's a bunch of axe-wielding units in front of me, I really enjoy sending my Myrmidon in on a forest tile or a fort, equip them with a sword, and have them dodge tank those brigands on enemy phase. It's a big part of what makes Fire Emblem enjoyable to me. I don't mind them tinkering a little bit with the weapon triangle and adding a couple of quirks to it, but in the next game, I would really just like to see the return of the classic weapon triangle. Just give me plus hit, avoid, and a little bit of damage whenever I have a weapon triangle advantage. Thank you. So this next point is going to be pretty simple and won't require a lot of explaining. I just want maps with more terrain, and preferable multiple paths. I feel like map design is something that's really suffered in modern Fire Emblem. There has been some games who have done it better than others. Fates was a little bit of a step up, but Awakening was atrocious, and Treehouse's map design was just so incredibly bad, and they kept recycling the maps over and over and over again. I will say, to Engage's credit, the map design definitely stepped up a notch, particularly in the early game. There were some really good maps there. However, it does feel to me like map design is just one of those things that aren't prioritized, and I find that incredibly odd because a good map can really make all the difference when it comes to Fire Emblem. When you're playing on bad maps, it doesn't matter how good the game mechanics are or how cool the characters are, the game is just not going to be fun. So for the next game, I really hope that they focus more on map design and particularly add more terrain and actually allows us to take multiple paths to reach the main objective. So this next point is also one I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over because it is really simple. I want less focus on the My Base feature. I don't mind there being a base feature. I like that there's a place to chill out in between battles. I just want it to be a little bit less prevalent. I don't want it to take up 50% of the game time. The Somniel in Engage was definitely a step up from Treehouse's Monastery, but it still ended up eating through a lot of your time if you wish to play optimally. Personally, I would love to see a return to the basis of the Tellius games, Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn. I think they did the best My Base feature in the entire series, and I would be absolutely over overjoyed if we could try that one out again. Just a base where you get some conversations, build supports, buy and forge items, and that's it. I've saved my most important point for last because this is really on the top of my Fire Emblem wishlists, and that is a return to 2D pixel graphics. For many years now, modern Fire Emblem has stuck to this weird 3D engine, and I think the series has become less beautiful as a result. One of the things that I think really makes the old school Fire Emblem games so beloved is that they have timeless graphics which only seem to age and become better with time. Just look at some of the beautiful animations I'm showing in the background here. They still look fantastic today over 20 years later. Now that's not to say 3D can't be beautiful. I think Radiant Dawn did a very good job with its animations, but for the most part I just find that many of the modern Fire Emblem animations just don't look that great. It's not that they look ugly, they work, but just compare it to the golden age of the GBA Fire Emblem era and tell me that these animations are not just filled with personality, flair, and soul. They are just so nice to look at, and they have so much character and personality. I mean, just look at the GBA Swordmaster critical animation. Who could ever possibly forget something like this? So one of my biggest hopes is that the next Fire Emblem game sees a return to the beautiful 2D pixel art style that I know that they can pull off if they want. And if you think that's not going to work out in today's age, then I bid you to look at games like Octopath Traveler and tell me if those games aren't breathtaking to behold. Just imagine a modern Fire Emblem game being released with this kind of art style and tell me it would not be gorgeous. So yeah, that is my official wishlist for the next Fire Emblem game. Now I am under no illusion that this will actually happen, I would just be happy if they did one or two of these. But what about you guys? What is your wishlist for the next Fire Emblem game? Let me know about it in the comment section below. I always like to read your comments. Give this video a like and subscribe for more Fire Emblem content. My name is Mengs, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.